When it comes to animation, I always treat animators as actors. I know we have voice actors and they get the spotlight, they get the interviews, they get all that stuff. I cannot give enough credit to the animators that are sitting behind a computer because they have to take a performance. In some cases, there's not even voice performance and they have to act it out. And I feel like that is very difficult to replicate with AI.
My name is Alisa. If you've never met me, my name is Alisa, and welcome back to Sunday Morning Juice. Today, I am joined by Carlos Baena, an award-winning director and filmmaker whose work bridges cinematic spectacle with deeply human storytelling. So you have described Star Trek Unification as a visual poem rather than a traditional narrative. Why did you choose silence as the most powerful tool for Kirk and Spock's reunion?
I think it's a combination. We used to have dialogue and we tested dialogue on it. It's two parts. One of them, I always feel like dialogue sometimes can get in the way of things, too much dialogue. I think that's the animator, the animator in me. I was an animator for, 20 years. And I always feel like there is so much that we can say without having to open our mouths or say anything. And in my head, one of the many reasons, there's a lot of reasons, but for example, one of them is you have a character that is joining the deathbed of another character. They have already said everything they needed to say throughout their whole lives. For me, it just felt a lot more powerful to join that best friend and just be, instead of like catching up or like, how'd you be? That never felt right to me. A lot of it, I mentioned in other interviews, a lot of it was inspired by my parents. I never got a chance to join my mom. She passed away very fast. So there was that feeling of what I would do to just spend 5 minutes with her. No talking, just being, So I think there was a lot of that and many conversations of that. And we tried it, with the storyboards, and the more we tried it, the more I talked to the actors, the more I actually got very excited about it. It's not something that you can pull off in many times, but in here, it just felt like a poem. And it was like a love letter to these two characters. And, what better fit than to treat it like this love letter, like a poem.
It was really powerful. I felt like everything was said in the silence.
Just to add to that, it also helped that I had amazing actors and actresses. I mean, all of them in Unification were so good at nuance acting. So many micro movements, obviously with Sam Witwer, since he was the driver of the piece, kept wanting even smaller because we had so many close-ups that sometimes the camera would pick so much, and the technology allowed for that with the face replacement. So it did help to have very strong cast.
I also read that you moved away from a traditional script early on and you turned toward tools like Sync Sketch to visually write the story. How did the images help with getting into the emotional rhythm of the scene? How did looking at those images help versus the words?
So Sync Sketch was adopted early on just so that we could have dailies, so that the team, I've used Sync Sketch now in 3 other projects prior to Unification, and it was developed by somebody I used to work with at Pixar. And I love how easy it is to use. So we just needed something for dailies. So we were using that mostly for post-production, for the VFX part of it. Prior to the shoots, I think coming from Pixar or coming from animation, I love to watch the movie multiple times. I love to react to the movie and for the movie to tell me what it needs, what it wants. So we had multiple versions of unification long before we even had any recordings or any footage from the shoot. So we had, like, I edited on as a storyboards. I think we did 2 passes of storyboards, and I think then afterwards we did like 4 or 5 passes with previs, because I knew that the shoots were gonna be tight in terms of time and budget too. I didn't want to improvise on the set, camera-wise. I wanted to go there knowing exactly where we were gonna put the camera, because we had a lot to shoot in very little time.
On the topic of a tight schedule, I know that the weather at the Huntington Gardens ruined some plans that you guys had. Can you tell me about what happened and then how you guys were able to find a creative solution in that chaos?
It was great. We got there and it started raining. Fantastic. This was like basically a sequence where we wanted to be sunny. We wanted this feeling of like, great weather, beautiful greens, beautiful blue skies, all that stuff early on. So when we got there the first time around, literally it was within 8 or 9 a.m. and it started raining. I think we decided to still go ahead and shoot. Because for me, it's like, even if it rains, I can always, I don't know, like something might come up on the edit that surprises me. So we were shooting with rain in at least like 1 or 2 shots. And then it was just overcast. We ultimately ended up using 1 shot of the whole day. And then, but for me it was great because it was rehearsal. I used it to kind of like get to know, I had never worked with Sam, our main actor. So it was a great first day to kind of like, how do you like to work? And, what am I envisioning? Then the following shoot on the volume wall, and we were so in sync, and we had already met a couple of times via Zoom. So that day, even though it was raining, it was fantastic to use it as a rehearsal and to get on the zone, I guess.
The final shot of Kirk looking at the sunset is much longer than you originally scripted it. How did you conclude that moment needed a lot more breath?
I think the edit. I think we shot a lot of footage of that day, and the more we looked at it on the edit, the more I was realizing this moment is asking for more, more of these characters. In talking to Jules Urbach, who came up with the story, when he told me about these 2 characters meeting, this goodbye scene, a meeting, and then holding hands, and in talking to him, what we decided is, I think let's still try to push for more, because this could be a great opportunity for people that have wanting to get to this moment to enjoy more of it, Again, using the analogy of me and my parents, I would take, they're not with us anymore, so I would take any time with it. Like, that's how important my parents are. And I know how important the characters of Kirk, James T. Kirk and Spock, were for millions of people. So finishing just on the handshake, it almost felt like you go to a restaurant, the dish you're gonna have, you get all the appetizers and the drinks and all that stuff, and then by the time they bring the actual dish, they're like, you're not gonna get enough. You wanted time to really enjoy it, So and we tested it on the storyboards, and sure enough, it wanted more of that. So
in your work, you're really good at mastering that emotional storytelling. And I can tell that you also bring your own personal feelings into the work. That's why it feels so authentic. Have you noticed with technology, is it more possible or does it inhibit you accessing those complex feelings?
I can only speak from the technology that we were using in unification. Technology right now, it changes by the minute. So it's hard to know now with all this wild AI world happening now. But when we were shooting, I loved that we were on a set. I love being on a set. And, this guy, David, on the set handed me this iPad where I was able to see the actor's face, Sam's face, or Larry's. And then below, I saw a real-time version of the characters of Kirk and Spock. So it allowed me to kind of like direct looking at the faces of the characters that they are portraying. And that was super helpful. Like, I don't know if it would have been the same if I would have only been able to see the actors' faces. The fact that Otoi made this technology and allowing me to see the takes and the performances real time with the faces on it, like, it was just amazing. Like, it was like that was a big change. I don't know if it would be the same, to be honest, the other way around.
WondLa has a much more cinematic, almost live action feel compared to traditional Animotion. And I also feel like in that project, the emotion is captured very, very well too. What recent innovations can you say helped make that story more effective?
Well, with WondLa, it was so helpful that we had an incredible team of writers. It was Bob Snow, Christian, Grace Davis. Like, they had this team of writers and more people, that put together these documents and have worked on the scripts long enough that by the time a director comes, it's like half the job is already done. Like, I would read what's on the pages and it's already, there's already emotion in there. So that helps, credit where credit is due. And for me, I work very closely also with my editor, Alisa, in trying to figure out what are the pockets where we want to push action, what are the pockets that pushes plot, but really we were always very protective about what are the places that we want actually people to feel and to relate. So the technology in WondLa, it was the way I'm used to in animation, which is, again, it's storyboards, then previews and layout, and then you get to animation. We had a fantastic studio icon that was working with Skydance, and then you reiterate. You take a pass at the whole episode, then you show it, you get notes, and you find ways to continue improving it. So that part didn't change. We weren't using any other technology that I can think of. It was just 3D, computer graphics, just with a lot of talented artists. So that helps always.
You pushed the lighting in the finale to be much darker and more cinematic than what we usually see in animation also. How did you want the audience to feel when you made that decision?
The lighting at the end, it was definitely very deliberate, because we kind of wanted a big contrast and a big change. Without spoiling the ending for those that haven't watched it, you have a character gets to a darker place and then makes certain decisions that changes the stakes around, and we wanted visual contrast to represent that. So we went from like darker, not entering horror territory, as much as I would love that anywhere, but to then go to something that it was just beautifully, beautiful light and beautiful colors at the very end by the story, actually. And then working with Josh Herrick, our VFX supervisor, and Andy Harness, our production designer, they would ask the directors for, they would work on these like color scripts. They call them color scripts, which is telling the story through color, which is something amazing that they used to do at Pixar all the time. I'm sure they still do it. And what I would do is give them references for those colors. So I would spend all this time, using a software called Shot Deck, and also Google Images as well. I'm finding references and inspiration, and then I would create this document, send it to them, and then they would try to turn that into with artwork. They would turn that and do artwork to that.
You co-founded Animation Mentor to teach the craft of animation, which used to take years to master, but now we do have AI tools and that can generate movement much quicker in seconds. Since technical skill isn't the barrier to entry that it used to be, what is the new test for a great artist?
When it comes to animation, I always treat animators as actors. I always feel like, they're the actors of a film. I know we have voice actors, and they get the spotlight, they get the interviews, they get all that stuff. I cannot give enough credit to the animators that are sitting behind a computer because they have to take a performance, but in some cases, there's not even voice performance, and they have to act it out. And I feel like that is very difficult to replicate with AI. And the reason, we can talk the whole day about AI. I have opinions, and I see the pros and the cons, actually. I see both. But when it comes to animation, being specific to your question, what an animator brings to the table that an AI doesn't is a lifelong story or a lifelong journey of personal experiences that then they put it through the work, just in the same as an actor, So the AI hasn't had those experiences, and the AI wasn't there when I spent the last 2 days holding my father's hand, up until the last breath of his life. So that gave me a lot of memories and feelings and emotions that then I think subconsciously come out in your work. The AI wasn't there when our child was born. So there was just a lot of things that I feel like AI is a double-edged sword. I appreciate the cutting down in speed or but I feel like what's very important to preserve is just the craftsmanship of the art of performance, of acting, So I do like, and I've seen, animators that they'll act to the camera. Actually, a lot of my feedback, for example, on WondLa to the animators team, I would just record myself. So then I would just tell, I would just send them videos. I would be like, this is kind of like how big or small I was thinking for this moment. And I would act it out. I would make a fool of myself on that camera at midnight. And so I feel like that part of the process is very important. I've seen enough AI. My LinkedIn is like 90% AI now. There's so much AI. But I always, I feel like so much of the acting is the craftsmanship. It's like, you can tell a moment through acting in a million different ways. The why of that particular performance based on the behavior of the character, based on the personality, based on the history, on those defining milestones in somebody's life, that stuff I feel like is super important, So I'm sure that technology will continue evolving, but, I really, I really appreciate certain aspects of it. So.
For new artists, what is a tip that you can give them if they're terrified about technology to know that they can't be replaced by a computer?
The whole replacement thing, which right now is like any of us. That fear is just it's global, regardless of what we do. I try very hard right now in all the stuff that I develop to ask myself the same question, which is like, whatever I'm developing, would I want to watch it? Would it speak to me in more ways? You don't want to do, at least for me, I don't enjoy just, popcorn type of stuff. Like it's just pure escapism. There's gotta be something deeper, like something that speaks to me on a personal level. And I think those are the movies and the shows that I love the most. The ones that I'm like, okay, there's something deeper in here that I can relate. I watched a movie 2 years ago or something like that. It was called Past Lives. And I just kept thinking about that movie for a whole week. By now I was born in Spain, but now, it went more than half my life that I've been in the United States. Those two parts, of my head, after I saw that movie, I just kept thinking about it, and I loved it. I love that I'm thinking about a movie for a whole week, and that's just the power of art form.
If we were meeting 1 year from today, what do you hope we're talking about?
If we're meeting 1 year from today, in the future or in the past? I know what I would tell to the past. 1 year from today, I tell myself, like, I just hope to have work, and I hope that me and my family, we just have health. That's all. It's a luxury to have a job. And I hope I continue working on things that I'm proud of. I was very proud of both WondLa and Unification, very much. So I just try to continue developing things that hopefully I'm very proud of.
Awesome. And for those watching, how can they stay connected with you? Do you have a website or anything like that you want to share?
Yeah, I'm on social media, and I also have a website, which is carlosbaena.com. Mm-hmm. But and I think on the website, there is the links to the social media, maybe. I try to keep up with social media, but lately it's so difficult to open up social media without feeling depressed afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carlos, for meeting with me today. This has been awesome.
Of course, it is my pleasure, Alisa. Thank you for having me.